So it's time to talk about the most talked about controversial film of the year so far. Whether it's controversial or not, it's definitely being talked about. We're going to be discussing Captain America: Brave New World today. This was released on Valentine's Day. We actually did not see this film on Valentine's Day. We waited until Discount Tuesday, which is a crazy concept to me because I remember, like, you know, when a Marvel film came out, we would all see it on a Thursday night, first opening, and now it's kind of like died down to waiting until Discount Tuesday to see a Marvel film because of the Rotten Tomatoes score. So instead, we ended up seeing Paddington in Peru on Valentine's Day. I guess I can talk pretty briefly about this film before I get into the actual review of what this video is about. Paddington in Peru, it was fine. It's just Paddington. You know, he's a cute little bear. He merits a ticket price from me. Is it as good as the first Paddington films? No, I don't think so. It's going to be really hard to beat Paddington 2. Also, Sally Hawkins isn't in Paddington 3, Paddington in Peru, which is definitely a huge negative for this film. They ended up replacing her with another well-known actress. She didn't want to come back. I guess she was busy making this disturbing film. This trailer was just released today, and yeah, these are two different films, like Paddington in Peru and this new Talk to Me sequel spinoff, but whatever. Like these are way two different films, so it's no wonder why she didn't return for Paddington in Peru. This movie looks disturbing. So yeah, we saw Paddington in Peru on Valentine's Day and ended up seeing Captain America: Brave New World on a Tuesday. I'm talking about it now. And yeah, this movie has a lot of conversations centering around it. It's definitely being talked about as like a low-rated Marvel film, obviously with the score that's on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a lot of people out there who are hating on the movie for obvious reasons that I'm not going to get into because I just don't even want to acknowledge any type of hate out there. The film has also reached political controversy where people are dissecting a man's words. Don't want to get into all that. I just want to talk about this film. How was it? Does it merit any of this hate that is being talked about? I don't know. It's hard because there are aspects of the film that I really, really like. And there's stuff, yeah, I kind of hate. Maybe not hate, but like definitely dislike. It's the extra filler stuff. Let's talk about this film. So Captain America: Brave New World stars Anthony Mackie reprising his role as Sam Wilson, taking up the mantle of Captain America after Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He's caught in a situation where a friend of his is being framed for the attempted murder of the president, who is now General Thunderbolt Ross, or in this situation, President Thunderbolt Ross. And it's up to Sam Wilson to figure out how to clear his friend's name and save the country because he's Captain America. It's a Marvel film. And yeah, this film, I would say that for the actual backbone of the film, what it's actually about, like the Captain America aspect of it, it's probably the best part of the film. I really like Anthony Mackie in this role, and I can't wait to see him as this version of Captain America when he's interacting with the other Avengers and stuff like that in the new Avengers films that are coming out. I'm really curious to see that kind of dialogue and chemistry from the next generation of Avengers that we're going to be seeing soon. I think he really holds himself up as his character, and I think it's probably the best part, just kind of seeing him in conflict as well. There is still doubts within this character about whether or not he can uphold this mantle because it's such an important position, which really affects the inner plot of this film because he is really trying to make up with Thunderbolt Ross, who's now the president and everything, and trying to build and maintain a good relationship with the president of the United States to maybe bring back the Avengers. But once his friend is brought into this conflict of being framed for trying to kill the president, he wants him to have nothing to do with this investigation because he acknowledges the importance of him upholding this rank as Captain America as a black person. So there's a lot of like political themes in this, and the themes of trying to do the right thing even though authority is telling you to do something completely else, which has always been kind of the themes of these Captain America movies that I really appreciate. Is sometimes you have to defy authority in order to do the right thing, which is definitely a theme that I'm recognizing in this film, where even though you want to respect someone who is the president, sometimes you have to walk away from that in order to do the right thing. So these are themes that I really, really like about this film, and it kind of really does speak to what's going on in our country right now. We're not going to agree all the time on what the president says, but it's obviously up to us to recognize as US citizens what our values are and how we want to go about our lives. The movie is obviously trying to be that of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. This isn't necessarily a superhero film. This is actually a political thriller with superheroes in it. And the movie has had a lot of controversy, not even just with like the recent ones, but even from last year. The movie was supposed to come out last year. There was even McDonald's toys in 2024 because they thought the movie was coming out that year, but the movie didn't come out that year. But the McDonald's toys were released that year. So it was very interesting kind of just like seeing this like little preview of this movie that we weren't getting yet through like McDonald's toys. I was like, oh, that's different. Apparently they needed to do some reshoots because the first cut of the film was just not working with test screenings and everything, and that was already causing controversy with people not really trusting the success of this film. And for the most part, the film feels coherent enough. If you were to watch this film without the knowledge that there were reshoots, you probably wouldn't recognize anything like that. There is one scene in particular where like there are two characters who are under a tunnel outside, and they're having a conversation, and it's very exposition heavy, and there's just not a whole lot going on in the background or in the cinematography. You can tell that they like called these two actors like to come on set one day just to film this very short, brief scene. That's the part where I was like, this is definitely a reshoot, but everything else for the most part works. There's maybe one scene where like Anthony Mackie is on the phone while he's driving a car, and he's talking to his partner trying to investigate like this crime that has happened and everything. That might be a reshoot, I don't know. But it works for the most part. The movie is able to be as coherent as it can be, and it could be worse. Now let's talk about the stuff that I kind of hate. This movie is trying way too hard to acknowledge that it's in the Marvel Universe. We already know that. It is Easter egg after Easter egg in this film, and it really does kind of take away from a plot that could be really good and merit on its own, but unfortunately they're cramming stuff from the Disney Plus shows, from movies that happened a few years back that we don't care about, and even a movie that happened like 17 years ago that we kind of forgot about, and I'm sure a lot of people forgot about, and aren't really going to understand the references in this film, and people are just going to be completely lost. I will talk about these things though, because as a hardcore fan, I know what they're talking about. But for the general audience member, I can foresee people watching this film and thinking to themselves, what the fuck is going on here? So let's dive into that. So not only is this a Captain America film, but this is kind of a Hulk film as well. Without the Hulk, actually. Well, we'll get to that, but like the main Hulk, Bruce Banner, is not in this film. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but like, yeah, he's not in the film. As I stated before, we have the character of General Thunderbolt Ross taking up the rankings of the president in this film. And obviously this was a character that was portrayed by William Hurt in Incredible Hulk, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War. This is a pretty well-known character when you see him in these Marvel films, that this is this character. But not to the point where we know him by name. We just know his face. I'm talking from the perspective of a general audience member. They decided to bring in Harrison Ford to reprise this character because Hurt had passed away a few years ago, and you really probably wouldn't know that it's this character. They do a okay job with explaining that in the beginning of the film, where you have newscasters explaining that he was this general and he was a Hulk hunter and he's becoming president and everything. The problem is that like he had to shave his mustache because like he's president and he wants to look good and everything. Maybe the mustache would have helped. I don't know. Maybe people would have made that connection. I guess they were relying heavily on the fact that like he was a Hulk hunter and he had a daughter named Betty Ross. But unfortunately, The Incredible Hulk, again, came out 17 years ago. And we're having to reference a film that came out that long ago in order to understand what's going on in the film in 2025. If you're a conventional audience member, you don't know who this character is. Another movie that they, for whatever reason, want to reference is The Eternals that came out in 2021. This is another thing too, is that Marvel is really pushing this agenda of trying to acknowledge these films that we don't really care about in their upcoming films, And I think it just needs to be a situation where they acknowledge, like, okay, this film didn't work out. We're going to kind of forget it. But in this film, they acknowledge the celestial being that has its hand sticking out and its head from the ocean and everything. And this is the way that they're introducing adamantium into the MCU by referencing a Marvel film that didn't do too well and kind of convolutes the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything. Clearly, the Eternals didn't do too well at the box office. I think that was like actually the first Marvel film that I didn't see at the movie theaters. Why on earth would you reference an obscure film like this in a Captain America film? Knowing my friends and the general audience members that go to see these films, people are not going to know what this thing is unless they saw Eternals, and not a lot of people saw Eternals. They're even referencing Easter eggs from the Black Widow movie that came out that not a lot of people liked, where Thunderbolt Ross has like an assistant who is investigating this case, and it turns out that she's an ex-Black Widow from the Red Room. It's just like, there's just so much content that you really need to watch to understand what is going on in this film and where all these different characters come from. And it really takes away from us wanting to follow Sam Wilson as this new Captain America. And let's talk about that real quick. The first scene that happens with Captain America, the first fight scene, the opening, is pretty good for the most part. He's got his like white suit that was introduced in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really like that suit. It's comic book accurate. It's great. Then as the film progresses, he puts on this new Captain America suit, which is just Steve Rogers' suit, but with wings. I didn't like that. I don't know. It just like took away the self-identity from Sam Wilson. It just kind of felt like he was putting on something that belonged to the prior Captain America, and he wasn't wearing like something that like identified him or whatever. I didn't like that. I don't understand why they went down that route. It was so perfect and everything. Why did you do this? Like, just I'm happy that it was like in that first scene, but it's clearly not in the rest of the film. He puts on this other suit and everything. I don't want to see that suit again. Go back to the white suit. That white suit was great. Also, let's talk about Giancarlo Esposito. What a great actor. What an amazing human being. I have loved everything that he's been in so far. He is such a presence in everything that he is in. What a wasted opportunity. This guy, people have been speculating for years as to whether or not he would be joining the MCU. He is just that likable of an actor that we have wanted him to be in this universe for some time now, and some have even speculated that he would be the next Charles Xavier. He is that good. He is that awesome of a presence. And unfortunately, Marvel contacted him and decided to bring him in as like this mercenary character. I'm sure he is a character from the comics, but doesn't really matter because he's just a guy. He's just a guy, like a mercenary who is doing the deeds of like the main villain, which we'll get into as well. It's just such a wasted opportunity for this actor, knowing that there are so many characters in this universe that he could possibly play, and they decide to utilize him for like this very small role in this movie, and I absolutely hated it, and it's almost unforgivable. And let's talk about the main villain, the leader. Yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was cool. It's just like, I think people were wondering for the longest time as to when this guy would come up after seeing him in The Incredible Hulk. It did take 17 years, and people probably just aren't going to remember who this guy is because it was a movie from that long ago. But it was cool to see this character and how he looks at every probability and possibility out there, which is what the leader is. So I thought that was pretty cool. And let's get into my main gripe about this film now that we're actually talking about the leader and we've mentioned Thunderbolt Ross, is that they really need to stop taking these Hulk characters and pushing them as side characters in other Marvel films. The last time that they did this is they did it with Thor Ragnarok, where they had the Hulk be on this planet and they were paying tribute to Planet Hulk. Now, Planet Hulk is a like comic book of its own. Like, it is a series arc that explores the Hulk being on this planet. He's in these gladiator matches and everything. He even finds like a loved one, loses a loved one. He leaves this planet not knowing that he's leaving a child there. It's like this full-on epic saga of a story. And in Thor Ragnarok, it's just kind of showcased as like this side thing. And yeah, I understand that they acknowledge the child part in She-Hulk, but it's played off as almost like a comedy thing. It's very minuscule and it's not as epic as it should be. It's such a small part of like the universe that I almost like, again, I couldn't forgive them for doing that because it's a great comic book. It's kind of the same thing with this film as well, is that they have decided to take a really good story, like the Red Hulk story, and just place him in as a villain for Captain America to fight in this film. The Red Hulk stuff was cool. It was cool seeing like this rampaging monster in like Washington, D.C. and just seeing like shots of him on the White House. It was like iconic almost. It was like, wow, that's a really good shot. The problem is that it's not accurate towards the character. There's a lot that you can do with this character. Let me explain the comics real quick. In the Red Hulk comics that came out in 2008, the Red Hulk was introduced as like this new Hulk. They found out that it wasn't Bruce Banner. They found him in this jail cell that he was in, and they started recognizing that this was an entirely different person. And it took issues upon issues upon issues to figure out the identity of this character. And also, as we got to know him, we recognized that he was totally different from the Hulk and how he charged his strength, where his power came from, and he also spoke. He was sentient. He like actually spoke words. He wasn't like grunting. This was an actual character, and for so many issues, people were wondering like, who the f is this character? And now he is being presented into this film just as an antagonist for Captain America to fight. And that fun, that mystery is now all of a sudden taken out. Like, you could have had at least a film where like he's introduced in the beginning and people are like wondering like, okay, who is this guy? And yeah, as us like comic book readers, we would know who it is. But like, you know, I'm thinking about it from the perspective of like the general audience member who saw Captain America Winter Soldier. And I'm thinking about the first time people saw that scene where like the Winter Soldier loses his mask and it's revealed to be Bucky. There were still gasps in the theater because there are people who didn't read the comics. I think it would have been an interesting aspect to introduce this character into the beginning of the film and kind of create this mystery. Maybe that could have been like an initial plot where Sam Wilson recognizes, okay, we need to stop this new Hulk and we need to find out who he is. But unfortunately, it's played off as Harrison Ford was just taking gamma pills because he was making a deal with the leader to like fix his heart disease or whatever. But the pills had gamma radiation, and it was all part of a plot for him to lose control and turn into the red. This movie. This movie. The movie is just way too much. It's trying to introduce Easter eggs from 17 years ago, from films that aren't relevant, from Disney Plus shows and everything. There's been conversation as to how convoluted a Marvel film could be for a very long time now. If it's going to get to the point where we have to do all of this homework to watch a Marvel film. We're kind of having to do that right now because Daredevil Born Again is coming out in March, and me and my girlfriend are having to watch the Netflix shows that are now on Disney Plus to have an understanding of what is going to be happening in Daredevil Born Again because we don't want to miss anything. And it all just feels like you have to just do your research or be in the know of this universe. And yeah, that's the fun of it when like a character makes a cameo and you're like, oh, I know that guy and everything. But it's getting to a point where it's getting incredibly tiresome. And I don't know what exactly the solution is. I don't know if they need to just focus on like new characters for a while. I'd love to see another Shang-Chi movie. But it's just getting to a point where you really have to watch these prior films in order to watch the films that are coming out now. We actually made like a pretty interesting observation while watching this film. You know, obviously we're gonna have children one day. Like when we have kids and they're watching the Marvel films that are coming out when they're growing up and everything, are they gonna understand what's going on in these movies if they didn't watch films that came out before they were born? Are they gonna be able to appreciate and digest what's going on in this universe? Or is there gonna be some resentment because it's gonna be this thing where it's like, oh, mom and dad can enjoy these films because they watched it when they were kids, but I can't, and I don't want to watch these movies. It was very much an interesting conversation because I could foresee that happening for sure. And I think this film is a perfect example of why like this formula or this way of presenting a film in this universe it's just not working anymore. Look, if you're a fan of the MCU, I think you're still gonna really enjoy this film. I thought it was actually pretty well paced for the most part. All the other stuff didn't bother me because I know what's going on in this universe and everything. I've seen all this stuff. But as a film that stands on its own, and the fact that you have to watch all of this content to understand what is happening in this one film about Captain America, should be as simple as Captain America saving America and everything. I don't know. It's just way too much. And I think there is going to have to be some conversation in the near future as to how they can present these films. This is the most convoluted Marvel film so far in terms of like knowing your shit. That is 100% what I think so far. If you've seen all the films and all the TV shows, I don't think you're really going to have a problem, but I can foresee this being an issue for audience members for sure. So yeah, guys, that was my review of Captain America: Brave New World. Let me know what you thought of this film in the comments below. I am interested to have a conversation about this. Like this video, share it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I am really trying to gain a lot more subscribers this year, and I can't wait to talk about more stuff in the upcoming months. Really excited. Thank you guys so much. I'm Corbin Stuckey, and thank you for watching.